lovely place, lovely crowd. Happy to have a chance to be here. Hello everyone. I'm Pawel, and I will try to entertain you for the next half an hour or so. I guess I want to start with a short story. A couple of years back, I was invited to another conference, kind of a sister conference of Lean Agile Brighton, to London. And I struggled a little bit with choosing a topic because I'm a regular speaker there, and I didn't want to repeat myself. And after some back and forth, I figured that I would do something unusual, which was to talk about the very basic agile practices, which is something that I don't really like to talk about. But then I had this realization that so many things that we advise teams to do were invented like, what, a quarter of a century ago? And then if we had a chance to use like 2 decades of our experiences and knowledge and to start over, we would probably start advising our teams differently. So instead of adding more and more of practices and tools and techniques and theories, we might end up with something like really simple and down to earth and like really easy to digest for teams. And surprisingly enough, the feedback I received was like overwhelmingly positive. So this is why I decided to do something similar today, except in a different context. I want to talk about product development. So what we are doing and how we are doing things in terms of building new products. And I see a lot of common stuff between those two domains. Because similarly, we have a growing body of knowledge telling us how to do product development better, how to increase our chances of succeeding with our new products. And yet, I would say that we have equally appalling rate when it comes to making those things actually work. So this will be just a set of, I think, hard truths about product development. And if there's a common theme in all of those, it's this. First, admit that you have a problem. So the Lean Startup was published 13 years ago, and it was a huge change. It was a huge success, first of all, but then it triggered the global movement. It changed the language that we use when talking about product development. And what followed was like a rich body of knowledge, people inventing things, inventing new tools, new practices, writing books about them. And all of those books that I share here are great, and they are worth recommending. But having said that, statistically speaking, we didn't really start succeeding with building new products. The success rate is still awful, really. And the needle hasn't moved. So I see a huge gap between what we know that should work and what we are actually doing to make our product succeed. And if you want some credentials, like why I'm the right person to talk about that, I haven't written a book about anything, including product development. So I run Lunar Logic, and Lunar Logic is a company that is around for 20 years. Actually, next month, we are going to hold our 20th birthday party. And throughout that period, we have contributed in different roles in building around 200 different digital products. And if there is any common experience out of all those gigs, it is frustration. It is frustration on how many things get built that shouldn't have been built in the first place. So if you want to pull anything from this presentation, it's like build less. Class dismissed, thank you. So the story starts on yet another call with one of our potential clients. Yes, that's me, and I'm not happy. So one of my many roles at Lunar is that I'm involved in early discussions with our potential clients. And because many of our clients are either early stage startups or established companies that are considering building a new product, the part of those early discussions would be them pitching their idea or their product. So several months back, I'm sitting at one of those and I'm listening to a potential client of ours, and he's describing his grand idea, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and more and more and more complex, and my eyes go wide because at some point I realized that building the whole thing would easily require north of $500,000, and he still calls it an MVP. And then we talk more, and I realized that he doesn't have any budget for that. He actually hopes that an investor will fund the whole effort. And then I inquire more, and I realize that neither part of his grand idea has been validated yet. And yet, he is committed on building everything. And while this example is a little bit extreme, I admit, this is a really common theme when we are talking about people who are aspiring to build a new product. This is predominantly the story that I hear from our potential clients. So my thinking is that what we can do to help those people to actually waste less money, to waste less effort, to help them to build the things that might be used at the end of the day is not inventing yet another tool or a practice or a technique, not defining yet another canvas that we would tell them to use, but actually to get down from our ivory tower of self-righteousness and start talking in plain English how they can think about their ideas, their products a little bit better. So what follows is what I hope to be this kind of advice, those hard truths about product development. And the first one is that we have absolutely no clue what the success means when we're starting to build our product. We don't know. So there is this thing called product market fit in Lean startup language, and product market fit is defined as the degree to which a product responds to market demand. Or the way I like to describe it is, this is the sweet spot where a product can sustain the business behind it. We reach the sustainability point. Now, when we start building any product, when we start with an idea, we actually have no clue where that is. Imagine a business landscape, a business ecosystem, and it's more like looking for a place where our product, our offering would thrive. And because we don't know where that is, we cannot design an efficient path to get there because we don't know where we are heading. And all those big plans, huge MVPs, all those roadmaps are basically acting as if we knew where we were heading. And this destination is unknown. What's more, it's unknowable. So there is no point, really, in planning too much ahead. And because of that, the MVP that we want to build when we start, with a new product is, as a rule of thumb, between 10 to 20% of what people believe that it should be. It's as small. It should be as small. Because we have this tendency to think that if we have that much money, we will spend a good part of it on building whatever we dream of as our product. But then the first version of a product is never a success. In this world, we don't have home runs. We don't have slam dunks. We need to iterate our way into finding this sweet spot for our product, for our offering, where it can sustain the business behind it. And I already said that I often hear those idea or product pitches from our potential clients. Many of them are framed as MVPs. And by now, I've heard hundreds upon hundreds of those. And if I learned anything about the term MVP, is this. It's always a product. There's always a service, an offering, a product behind it. That much is true. Quite often, it is viable, as in, I can imagine a future where this offering would sustain the business behind it. But throughout those hundreds upon hundreds of MVP pitches, I'm yet to hear a single one, that I would consider minimal, where it wouldn't be easy to cut down the scope often significantly, and it would still be considered as viable by some people. So this is kind of a hard constraint, like cut your idea by 5 to 10 times. But this is a constraint that we should actually start with to trigger our creativity. And once we have done that, well, we can go ahead and start building it. But should we? So behind any successful product, there is a number of assumptions that need to be true in order for this product to succeed. And if you have hard times thinking of what those assumptions are, ask yourself this question. When you are starting with a new idea, a new product, imagine it's 2 years from now, and you failed miserably. What went wrong? Go wild, brainstorm. Just invent more and more reasons why you might have failed. And then, once you have those, you can try to order them by likeliness, by riskiness. And then you may focus on the riskiest of your assumptions. Now, give yourself this challenge. Without building anything, without writing a single line of code, what can you do to validate whether those assumptions are true or not? And believe me, there is a lot of what you can do to learn more. Even if you cannot clearly validate or invalidate either of those assumptions, you can definitely learn more about many of those. And chances are that you will learn that some of the assumptions that need to be true in order for your product to succeed are not so. And then you can save yourself some effort and money and either start working on changing the idea altogether, or maybe save that money and go for vacations or buy a board game and play. I don't know. And in the spirit of narrowing the context down, your target group is just a fraction of what you think it is. So we have this tendency when we are inventing a new idea for a product, we have this tendency to think about, okay, so this product will solve a problem. For whom? For these people. But then it also can solve a problem for that group of people, and for those, and for them as well. Why? It's simple, because we know that many products do not work like from scratch. They are not a success. And if our product doesn't work for them, maybe it will work for them. And if it doesn't work for them either, there are those two other groups. But when we are trying to address different groups, then we again fall into a trap of building more, because each group would have different needs. And it will be so much more difficult to delight either of them and to actually validate that our product works. So when thinking about the target group for an idea, we should narrow down the group that we are trying to address, the demographics, the geography, and so on and so forth. Think smaller, build less. Now, this is a lie. When you're reading all those books that I've recommended at the beginning, so many of them would suggest that you should be aiming for so-called hockey stick growth. You should be growing 10 times each year. So you would eventually become a 100x or a 1000x company, a 100x or a 1000x product. This is a lie. You shouldn't be aiming for that. Why? Here is a simple thing. We intrinsically know that the vast majority of products do fail. So if you are starting with a new idea, I'm betting that you will fail. Because it's a safe bet. And even if you don't, even if you refuse to fail, and you succeed, as in you reach this sustainability point where your product, your offering can sustain the business behind it, still, in the vast majority of cases, you will never see this exponential growth. Vast majority of products are never on this trajectory. So you should actually, you'd actually be so much better off if you were aspiring just for sustainability of your business. Because so many of those businesses reach a point where they can sustain a few people behind, or several people behind, or a few dozen people behind, and they are great businesses. They are sustaining so many people, so many families. They don't have to be a 100x or a 1000x product. And yes, we hear those few success stories, but they are few and far in between. Then, let's face it, product founders and startup founders and product sponsors alike are in love with their ideas, and this is a problem. I mean, don't get me wrong, their love in their ideas is also something that drives them, something that makes them tick, something that actually give them impulse to act, to build stuff. But then, if I'm with love in my idea, and I implement it through building a product, and it's not a success, and it never is at the beginning, then I'm tricked into thinking, well, it's not a problem of my idea, obviously. It's a problem of a product. What kind of a problem? Probably it doesn't implement my idea ideally, so I should add more things so it would be better. And it puts me on a quest of finding so-called killer feature. And the hard truth is that there has never been a killer feature. And actually trying to find one is the best way to drive your product to the ground, to run out of money and resources and to be out of business very quickly. Because what we should actually do is to challenge our ideas. And we would be so much better off if we were trying to gather people around us who would be challenging our ideas. And not necessarily stick with the one that we started with and then try to implement it better and better and better and add more stuff. The next one is about the honesty. The honesty in front of ourselves, but also the honesty in front of our core team. So I already mentioned that when we are thinking about clients, we should narrow down our focus. But this one is somewhat different. So imagine 3 different entrepreneurs, all of them building exactly the same product. The only difference is their context. The first one has pretty decent runway. So they are trying to optimize for delivering long-term value to their target group of customers. The second one has this aspiration that they will build something that they will sell to a big player in 2 or 3 or 4 years from now. The third one has pretty short runway, and they are aspiring to get more funding. Remember, they are building exactly the same product. Now, in each of those cases, they would be approaching that product development effort very differently. Why? Because the one key client in each of those contexts would be different. And you will be surprised how frequently the second or the third case actually happen. It's not that people who are building new products aspire to, solve someone's problem, deliver long-term value to people, to whoever are using their product, their app. They just want to make money. Now, if I wasn't controversial so far, I want to get so now. So here's the thing. Technical skills are overrated. And I know the vast majority of us operate in the IT industry. And the IT industry has this fetish of technical skills. I mean, can you think of another industry that would so routinely label people as seniors and mids and juniors simply based on their level of technical skills? Can you?
Project management.
Close enough, thank you. So if you ask people, what kind of a team they would like to work with, they would be like, oh, the most experience that we can get. But now ask yourself this question. Why do products fail? Do they fail because of not enough technical skills? Do they fail because of technical issues? No, they fail because their idea was wrong from the outset, or we didn't adjust whatever we were doing fast enough, or we haven't found this product market fit place for our offering. It's almost never because of technical issues. So you would be so much better off if instead of focusing on how experienced your developers and designers and testers are, you would be looking for people with the right mindset, something that I call product development mindset. People who, with their everyday decisions, they would be validating them against kind of the product goal that you have. They would be thinking not whether this code might have been improved, but more likely how I should make everyday trade-offs between, for example, pace of work and the quality of code, so that we better respond to whatever hypothesis we are trying to validate on a business level. You would be better off instead of focusing on the technical skills. You would be looking for people who were involved in many different products, ideally failed products, because they learn the hard lessons and they can help you avoid falling into repeating the same errors. And then, when you are starting with your new idea, it's not rocket science. Unless you are literally trying to put a man on Mars or send a satellite to the orbit, then it's not rocket science. What we are building is something that someone else has already built. We are trying to do it a little bit better. Or we are building something that somebody else has already built, except in a different context, and we are trying to build the similar thing in our context. That's vast majority of all the products that we build. And if we look at those biggest success stories, they are the same. Google, not the first search engine. Facebook, not the first social medium. Apple, not the first smartphone. And I could go on and on and on. We are reinventing stuff that has already been invented. So instead of thinking how novel we are and then focusing on bringing on people who have this very narrow experience in our very narrow slice of industry, we may be better off bringing people from all around the place, because they've had different experiences and they might have worked on something similar, except in a different context, and then they can help us to create this idea cross-pollination and avoid some of the pitfalls that we might fall into. And the last one is about changing the whole thinking about building new products. So again, if you go back to all those great books that I mentioned, they would typically revolve around an idea. You start with an idea, then you try to validate whether it would work or not. Then you try to make it work. And there are like tools and techniques and practices how to improve your chances. But I would advise you to start in a different place. Assess how much money you have available, whatever that is. It may be 10,000 or 100,000 or a million, whatever that is. Now, take just a fraction of that, not more than 20%, and treat that as a hard constraint. Before you spend the 20% of your budget, you want to deliver the first version of your product to the market. And then reverse engineer the whole process from that point. Now, why? Because first version is never an instant success. It never is. So before you actually can show any sustainability, you will need to iterate your way to that place. So that you need to save that further budget, that further resources to do that. So if you start with just a chunk of your available resources, you may quickly learn that you end up with something like, I don't know, 3,000 euro, 3,000 pounds. And then you will quickly realize that whatever your grand vision is, you are definitely not going to build that. And then you can either try to reinvent your idea, go roll your sleeves and get some more funding, or yet again, abandon the whole effort, save yourself some frustration, and spend that money on something that would bring you fun. So if there is any summary of all those hard truths, it would be bad news and good news. Bad news is that despite this huge and really valuable body of knowledge, it's not that anyone is doing that. Again, statistically speaking, I'm not saying that literally there is no examples of companies following the advice from those books, because clearly there are such companies. But statistically speaking, no one is doing that. So we created another huge body of knowledge that we are not using. And adding some more tools and practices to that list won't really change the situation. We need to have a leverage somewhere else. But this is also a good news, because it doesn't mean that you have to master all that stuff in order to improve your odds of succeeding with turning your next idea into a sustainable business. It's enough that you learn from the principles, and then you can use some really simple, down-to-earth advice to improve how you will do with your next product idea. Thank you very much. I realize there is one more hard truth. Your product doesn't need AI either. So here's the fun thing. Hearing all those product pitches throughout the last 2 years, I think every single one of them had the aspiration of being an AI product. And out of all of those, there might have been one, maybe two, where actually an AI component would have any role. The rest would be like, oh, I want to put an AI-powered label on my product because this is what sells. And yes, easy enough. We can do that. We can do that too. But there is so much hype along those lines. That's just hype. So, if I want you to remember one thing from this, build less. Thank you.